In the hands of neurosurgeon Dantsch, surgical tools were deadly weapons. The bad doctor, now serving a life sentence, injured, maimed, or killed 33 out of the 38 patients who trusted him with their routine spinal surgeries in the Dallas area over a 2-year period in the early 2010s. The early story of Dantsch begins in 2010 when he moved to Dallas, Texas. A year later, he would be hired to work at the Minimally Invasive Spine Institute. Subsequently, in the same year, Duntsch started his practice, the Texas Neurosurgical Institute, and was granted operating privileges at Baylor Regional Medical Center of Plano, simply called Baylor Plano. However, there is a prologue to all that. A failed college football player, Duntsch joined the University of Tennessee at Memphis College of Medicine in 1995, aiming to get both an MD and a PhD. During his research and his residency, he looked into the use of stem cells to treat brain cancer and helped launch a company devoted to obtaining and growing Dick's stem cells, also called Dick's Genics. It looked like he had a promising future as a researcher and a businessman, but alas, that was not the route that Duntsch took. As a surgery resident, Bill reports that Duntsch operated on less than 10% of the number of patients recommended by Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education. Still, surgery is what Duntsch chose for himself. And in 2 years, he operated on 3 different hospitals, killed 2 patients, paralyzed 4, and severely injured many others, causing them permanent damage and range from numbness in the limbs to loss of voice. His work shocked doctors who operated with him or who were later called to repair his botched surgeries. According to the Texas Observer, one physician even went as far as to compare him to the fictional serial killer and cannibal Hannibal Lecter. The horrors began not long after Duntsch joined the staff at Baylor Plano, operating on patients such as Barry Magaloff, a pool service company owner whose counterpart in Dr. Death is Joe Padua, also known as Perry Strong. He caused insurmountable pain and lifelong damages. Magaloff's surgery, according to Dr. Randall Kabir, also known as Slater, who assisted Duntsch on the case, was a simple one. In the spectrum of what a neurosurgeon does for a living, doing an interior lumbar fusion procedure is probably the easiest thing that they do on a daily basis, he told Bill. However, as Duntsch struggled to grab parts of Magaloff's spine using the wrong instrument, Kabir grew concerned. He offered to take over and eventually left the room after being consistently dismissed. Duntsch rendered his childhood friend paralyzed after a botched surgery. Magaloff was not Duntsch's only botched case during his time at Baylor Plano. However, he was allowed to continue operating without restraint up until he took on the case of Jerry Summers, also known as Dominic Burgess, a childhood friend of his who had endured a severe neck injury as a teen, the one that had gotten worse after a car accident. During the surgery, according to the Texas Observer, Duntsch sliced into one of the arteries running down Summers' spine, causing massive bleeding, which he tried to staunch by packing coagulants around the wound. In Dr. Death, this is described as Duntsch virtually severing Summers' head from his spine, and indeed, when Summers woke up, he found himself unable to move his arms and legs. A different surgeon was brought in to conduct repairs, but it was too late. While in the ICU, Summers accused Duntsch of spending the night before the surgery doing cocaine with him. The portrayal of Summers' case in Dr. Death is particularly heartbreaking. In a show in which performances can sometimes be a little over the top, Burgess delivers a fine job as Duntsch's former schoolmate who once enabled his substance abuse only to be later victimized by it. By the end of the series, it is shown that Summers never quite accepted that Duntsch was the one responsible for his fate and remained loyal to his friend even when he proved himself unworthy of such loyalty. The real Summers passed away in 2021 2021 from complications related to his paralysis. In Bill's ProPublica article, the author explains that Summers fell into a deep depression after his surgery, but later recanted his version of affairs, according to which he did cocaine with Duntsch on the night before the surgery. Still, his initial statement opens up another entire kind of worms in Duntsch's case: his problems with drugs. Patients who have later taken the doctor to court claim that he kept packets of white powder and bottles of alcohol in his office, and that he underwent treatment for substance abuse while at the University of Tennessee. They also claim that Duntsch skipped out on 5 drug tests that Baylor Plano asked him to take without any consequences. Duntsch was suspended for a month after Summers' botched surgery. After the one suspension, Duntsch went back to the OR where he ruptured the vertebral artery of 55-year-old Kelly Martin, causing her to bleed to death. This case led Baylor to call ties with him, but not in the appropriate manner. Instead of reporting Duntsch to the National Practitioner Data Bank as required by law, they simply allowed doctor to resign and maintain to its subsequent employers that there were no problems during his time with them. As per another story by the Texas Observer, the medical examiner from Collin County Medical Examiner, who was responsible for performing Martin's autopsy, was reportedly astounded by what had happened, that he brought her back in for another examination. With flawless credentials, he got a job at the Dallas Medical Center, where he would kill another patient like Kelly Martin. Floella Brown had a vertebral artery sliced open and was declared brain dead soon after a surgery was over. It would also cause irreparable damage in Mary Eford, a 71-year-old woman whose place in the show is taken by Madeline Beyer, also known as Marian Plunkett. While performing a spinal fusion on Eford, Duntsch amputated a nerve root and struggled to place the fusion hardware on her spine, drilling and removing screws. A subsequent review of the surgery also indicated that Duntsch had misdiagnosed the source of her back pain. Eford, who was once an active elderly woman, now moves around with the help of a wheelchair. As shown in Dr. Dodd, since the one Christopher was taken to court in 2017. Eford's error film-looking surgery eventually led to Duntsch being taken to court in a criminal case in 2017 after numerous complaints were made against the doctor by other, more capable physicians as well as by bronzed patients. The district attorney's office took an interest in the case. Following an investigation conducted by the DAs, Duntsch was arrested in 2015 for injury to an elderly person and 5 counts of assault, but only for his crime against Eford. Nevertheless, the jury considered him guilty and was sentenced to life imprisonment. He will become eligible for parole on the 20th of July 2045. But before he was taken to trial, his license was suspended by the Texas Medical Board in 2013 after a long investigation that began in 2012. Sadly, during the 1 year that it took the board to put a stop to Duntsch's bloody career, he was allowed to continue practicing medicine without any way for patients to find out about his wrongdoings. His website and social media profiles remained up, and there was no public database warning people of what they were up against. Furthermore, after losing his license, Duntsch remained working as a biomedical consultant in Colorado. He was also kept on board of medical publications and continued serving as head of 2 medicine-related companies. But why was Duntsch allowed to continue working with reprehension for so long? Well, the first answer and the easiest one is money. Since Baylor Plano had given Duntsch $600,000 in advance and was not looking to lose money, it turned a blind eye to many of his botched cases, only stepping in when things became too dire to ignore. Secondly, Duntsch might be merely one doctor among many who benefited from a system that discourages lawsuits and protects hospitals instead of those seeking their help. According to Texas Observer, Texan patients who wish to gain financial compensation or any other kind of retribution after being wronged by doctors have a hard battle ahead of them, especially since the mid-90s. Changes in the law made between 1996 and 2003 mean that those filing a lawsuit have to prove that the hospital and the doctor in question had malicious intent, and also cap the amounts that can be paid for non-economic damages at $250,000, driving lawyers away from such cases. Still, according to the NBC affiliate, a new law was passed in June 2023 with bipartisan support that shall prevent doctors from licenses revoked in other states from practicing in Texas and force the local medical board to inform the public when a physician is put under disciplinary action, among other things. Whether this would be enough to avoid future Christopher Duntsch's is still anyone's guess.